Welcome to the Military Transition Academy podcast. We are here with Cathy, one of my colleagues from Vets to PM, and today we're going to talk about how you can identify your transferable skills when it comes to your military transition or your career transition. Cathy, welcome to the show. I'd love for you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, thank you so much, Misty. It's fun to be here. Thank you for taking the time to be with me here. So I am Director of Career Services with Vets to PM, and I started my career many, many years ago in human resources. I spent about 4 years as a human resources manager for a company that doubled in size, which was really great experience. And then I went into the recruiting and executive search field where we evaluated candidates for specific jobs that our clients hired us to help them fill. So I've spent my entire career evaluating talent for specific jobs. It was about 2015, 10 years ago, when I helped a struggling veteran who'd been out for a couple of years and was really struggling to get a job. He was about to lose everything. And he asked for help with his resume. And so pro bono, I helped him with his resume, and it really kind of changed his whole job search and turned everything around because his big problem was he didn't know how to talk about himself in ways that civilian corporate America could understand.
Yeah.
So with a resume that explained who he was and what his skills were and what his abilities and knowledge were in civilian terminology, he wasn't going to get anywhere. So he introduced me to Vets to PM because he took one of our first PMP courses through Vets to PM. And that's how I got involved with Vets to PM. I started doing resumes for all the people taking our training courses and ended up building the career services department from there and coming on full time.
Yeah, and fun fact, I utilized Vets to PM in 2019. You guys are a part of my military transition story, and Cathy and I worked together on my resume, and I just remember getting the final product. And mind you, yes, you created my resume template. However, you also taught me how to write a resume. And when I received it, I was like, oh my gosh, kind of a big deal. And it gave me this feeling of hope that, hey, I can do this. I am so much more than my military career. Now, yes, the military has molded me into this human resources professional, but you made me realize, like, yeah, I can do what I'm doing right now. I can take this into the civilian sector and have a meaningful and lucrative post-service career. So 16,000 veterans we've helped in the last 10 years, Cathy, and you are a huge part of that, you and your team. And so today I really wanted to focus on what we call kind of the first step when it comes to a career transition, and that is identifying your transferable skill set. Most military service members and veterans are walking out of the military with a project management skill set, human resources, cyber, IT, safety, and it really doesn't depend on the level, entry, mid-level, or senior level. It's still something that we can identify and then translate, because when we translate well, we transition well. So I'd love for you to kind of take the veterans through, how do we identify our transferable skill set?
Yeah, it's easy and complex at the same time.
Yeah, right.
So
I always like to say it's simple, but it's not easy.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And we all know, and I'm not a veteran, I'm the daughter of a veteran. He spent a couple of years, my dad, in the Army Reserves before I was born. So I don't have firsthand experience, but after helping so many people, now I have a lot of firsthand experience. Or secondhand experience, I guess. But really, we all understand that you have an MOS or an AFSC. You have, some kind of slot that you're in as a this, that, or the other in the military. But we also know, and this is key, that you have so many other responsibilities, right? So that's
like additional duties, collaterals, all these other things that we have to do.
Right, exactly. And so those are important because those give you extra experience, other knowledge, other skills, other abilities in other things besides aviation maintenance or, whatever your field of specialty is. So you might be in the aviation maintenance field, but you're managing 250 people at some level. Well, there's a whole lot of things that come along with managing a group of people that big. There are not many people.
Good Lord, yes, there are.
Well, there's not many people in the civilian sector that manage 250 people.
Yeah,
Yeah, so there are a lot of skills that come with that. So really what you want to do is reflect on your role, your primary role, and all the ancillary responsibilities that you have. Start writing those down, reflect on those. What were the responsibilities? Did I have to budget? Did I have to resource people? Did I have to resource products? Did I have to resource services? What are the things I had to do to make sure my responsibilities got taken care of? So you have to think of it in those terms, right?
Yeah.
Problem solving. What problems did I have to solve? What technical skills did I apply to this? What kind of communication? At what levels did I have to, did I have to talk to people way below me or way above me or both? And that's valuable, right? To be able to talk to the CEO as well as to talk to the person who's, turning wrenches or whatever the case may be. How adaptable did I have to be? How much was I given a task and I had to figure out how to accomplish that task as opposed to somebody telling me how to accomplish that task. And then time management, things like that, right? The reason Misty says that you all have project management experience because any endeavor in a company that has a timeline is a project. You have a start date, you have an end date, you have to get it done. You have to resource people, money, technology, equipment to get it done. And then you have to complete it. And then you have to review it afterwards to say, how did we do and how can we do it better?
Yeah,
So
and I wanted to kind of jump in real quick because we see the rhetoric on LinkedIn all the time, like not every veteran is a project manager. No, but every professional is going to do some sort of project management in their career, in their role, in their responsibility. Right, Cathy? Do you agree with that?
100%. You don't have to be called a project manager to have project management skills or to utilize them. So
Absolutely
if you
not.
learn the skills of so a lot of them, I mean, this is how the company started. Our CEO, who struggled after getting out of the military for 13 years, getting his PhD, doing all these amazing things, but
Yeah.
never finding his niche, landed in a project management role. And the light bulb went off, and he said, oh my goodness, all the
Yeah.
time I was in the military, I was doing project management. Nobody told me this because they don't know it's called that. You're not using it in the terminology. You're not
Yes.
describing all the facets of it in the PMI project management realm, but you're
Yeah.
doing it, you're living it, you're planning for it, you're executing it, and you're reviewing it.
Yeah. And there's
Yeah,
different levels, right? Even in the civilian sector, I was there for 4 years in a Fortune 500 company. Like there's different levels of project management. I mean, you might not even hear them being referred to as project managers. Maybe they're project coordinators or
they
whatever it
could
may
be
be.
any position at corporate
Exactly.
America will
Human
benefit.
resources. I mean, all I did was manage projects. So we also have to remember like what you think is project management. So most people will go immediately to construction, right? Construction project management.
Or
Yes, that's
IT.
one facet of project management, and that
Mhm.
is pretty complex. And yes, when you are a project manager for a construction project, you have to have hard skills and soft skills. And so what Cathy's talking about right now is a soft skill. Project management, it can be both hard and soft, but most professionals have this soft skill, which is project management, that can be applied to their roles and their responsibilities.
100%. I worked at a recruiting firm and in, I don't know what year it was, but we decided to go remote because the lease for our building, small company, the lease for the building was coming up.
Yeah, just
They had
made
built a metro near us. It was too expensive to keep and we all kept telling the owner, we can do this remote. We talk to people on the phone all day. We don't need to all come together in a building and do this. So the four of us sat down and plotted out, what do we have to do to make this happen? We had a big whiteboard in the office. And what we essentially did was we created a project of going virtual, and every single step we had to do it. And who knew that was project management, but it was.
Yeah, because most of us, we're initiating something, we're planning something, we're executing something, we're adjusting something, and we're closing something. 5 pillars of project management.
Yeah,
You know?
100%. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So
So,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, so then the next step would be mapping your military skills, all those skills that you wrote down and you reflected on to civilian jobs. And really that takes research. That takes, okay, I might want to be a project manager. Well, you don't have to be titled project manager like we just talked about to use those skills. So maybe start, searching job descriptions, like get on LinkedIn and look at the job section and type in keywords that you have experience in, right? See what kind of things pop up. Type project management. It's not necessarily going to be a project manager title, but you're going to start learning a lot about different types of roles, different types of companies, what those roles, and responsibilities are, what those companies do. And you're going to start learning. And then you're going to start matching those skills, the skills you have to what they're saying, leadership, project management, communications, industries, like what industry. Maybe you were in logistics in the military. Maybe you don't want to be in logistics anymore. So don't search logistics, search all the other things, right? So it takes an immense amount of research. It's kind of like when I first started doing resumes for transitioning military members, I happened upon that first person, and that was a great boost for me to understand that I can help somebody do this. But for the first year or two that I was helping with resumes, I was doing a lot of Googling. I'm getting people's performance evaluations from the military, and I'm like, what does this acronym mean? Google the acronym. Oh, I mean, I did that for years trying to figure out, and now I've learned a lot about it, right? But that's something you're going to have to do to transfer those skills.
Yeah, one of my favorite exercises to take veterans or anyone really, I mean, I have taken my civilian colleagues through this too, is that, physically print some job postings that speak to you. Don't look at the basic or preferred requirements, just whatever kind of title or whatever speaks to you. And that's something to be aware of too. And I think Cathy can relate to this, but sometimes us human resources people don't know how to name titles of jobs. So be careful. I hate to say that, but it's true, right? Yep. Be careful of reading a title and thinking that you know what it entails, but print out some job postings, take 2 different color highlighters and take one color and just highlight everything that you relate to, that you've done, that you are like, oh, okay, I've done this before. Because a lot of job postings, you are going to be able to read a job posting probably a little bit more effectively than a civilian being able to read your resume, right? Because we have this, we can sort of identify what those terms, tools, techniques, and methods are. And so highlight all those things that you do have some sort of familiarity with, right? And then take another highlighter and highlight those things that you don't. And then that's where you start bridging the gap. And then start looking at those basic and preferred requirements. Job postings will give you a lot of information. Not only will it help you identify your transferable skill sets, but you know this as well as I do, those can give you some language too to utilize on a resume.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah,
On the ones that you have experience in or familiarity with, start using those words on your resume instead of some acronym or some, nobody knows what a squadron is. I've had this conversation with people a million times when doing resumes. I'll just call it a group. Manage a group of, X number of people. And they're like, oh, well, no, that's at this level, not at that level. And nobody knows what a squadron is. Nobody cares. And they don't want to learn. They just want to know that you managed 50 people. That and group to them doesn't mean anything other than a group of 50 people. So, try to unhinge yourself from what something means, because in corporate America, it's kind of at the more basic level. It's like, I manage a group of X number of people. I managed a budget of X number of dollars. And it doesn't matter what it's called in the military because people don't care.
No. And I remember being at my civilian company and recruiters would come to my office and be like, hey, Misty, we have this veteran, please read this resume. And I would be stuck. So if I can't understand, because Air Force is different than Army and Army is different than the Marines and whatever it may be. And so you do have to, when you think of the content of your resume or the content of your interview stories, you do have to think about you are the 0.78% of the nation that serves in the Air Force. It's not even, or in the military, it's not even 1% anymore. So you have to adapt. You cannot expect recruiters and hiring managers to adapt. And the first step is identifying that transferable skill set. And so now, yes, you and I used to Google all the time, but now we have tons of AI tools, ChatGPT, Copilot, I mean, you name it, that you can use to help you, not use to create your resume, not use to create this or create that, but you can use to help you because it's a more refined Google search, because that's what
Yes.
those AI tools are doing. I mean, I even do this now. It's like, how many days do we have left of January? You're like, I don't even go to Google anymore. I just put it in ChatGPT because it's a more refined and it's a quicker search. So what you can do, and this is what I did the other day for somebody that was helping, I said, act as a recruiter and help me decipher the differences between this in the military and what it is in the civilian sector. And I plugged in some information and I worked with it, and I'm trying to refine in order to identify human resources in the military is actually this in the civilian sector.
Yep. So human resources in the military has a lot of similarities, but a lot of differences, right? You can't
So many
just walk
differences.
into a human resources job well, I mean, some people do, but there's a lot to learn, right? And
Yeah.
that's one of the key things with the military to civilian transition. And you mentioned
Yeah.
construction project management. A lot of construction companies are not going to call you a project manager until you have managed a $250 million
Yeah.
bridge, build for
Yeah.
that company, because you have to know every facet of project management in their industry, in their company. So you might come in with amazing project management skills, but you don't know anything about building a $250 million highway bridge, right?
Exactly.
So, or maybe you know a little bit about it, but not enough to be called a project manager. So a smaller company might call you a project manager, but at that bigger company, you might be a project engineer or a project coordinator, or something. So just because you have a skill doesn't mean it transfers exactly into corporate America. So you have to be flexible and try not to get hung up on titles as much as
Yeah.
what the job is, what you can bring to it, and what you will get from that company and that career.
Yeah. And when it comes to identifying your transferable skill set, that's why Cathy and I, Career Services, Vets to PM, we always stress like start preparing today for your tomorrow. And that starts with networking and building a community outside of your military community, because you can utilize them to be like, hey, I'm trying to, identify some transferable skills. I'm writing a resume. I'm creating my interview stories. I'd love to jump on a call with you. I know you're in the manufacturing industry. Can we talk through some things? Do you understand what I'm trying to say? And those professionals can just be, add another layer to you, dissecting your experience in the military.
Yeah, 100%. And anytime you put yourself out there, maybe go outside of your comfort zone to do something like that, you're going to gain something from it. And especially if you're interested in the manufacturing industry, you're going to make a contact first
Yeah.
and foremost. People do like to help. You're going to meet some people who don't, and you're going to meet a lot of people who do. And so those people who like to help, get on the phone with them and have a conversation, and show your willingness to learn, not just get something from them. If you
Yeah.
show your willingness to learn, you
Yeah.
will learn. And things you can do, speaking civilian language is really important in transferring, identifying these transferable skills, because you have to be able to convey those transferable skills in civilian language. So one of the things is avoid the jargon.
Yeah.
So many things in the military is, they're acronyms, and a lot of people are proud of what they did. I was with the UN and whatever in Europe, and that's great. But if you drill it down to this, a recruiter wants to look at your resume and picture you in the job that they're trying to fill. It's that
Yep.
simple.
They want to envision from your experience, from your accomplishments, they want to envision you in the seat. And they
Right.
will take 7 to 10 seconds, sometimes less than that, to see that. And if
So
you
if
can't
you,
explain it, that
right. And so if your first line on your resume says, 23-year veteran of the United States Air Force, you've lost them.
yeah,
Because
you've just lost me. Yeah,
unless that job is looking for that specifically, they're going to move on, because talent acquisition people are not necessarily tuned into the military and what a 24-year veteran of the Air Force means, right? So there's a place to put that, and it's the last line of your summary. U.S. Air Force veteran.
Yep.
Get the word veteran in there. Get Air Force in there. They know that you're a veteran of the Air Force, and some companies flag the word veteran, and they
Yeah.
have
I
a
was just gonna
human
say
read
that.
it, you
Yep.
know. So it's good to have it in there. But what you want to do is avoid jargon. You want to use examples, right? One of the things on interviewing, this is a little bit more on the interviewing side than on the resume, but examples are good on the resume too. Um, in the military, you often work in teams. It's a team thing. A lot of people don't like to take single responsibility for a success of something because you worked as a team, you planned it as a team, whatever. Project teams work together too, but they need to know what you did, what was your part, what were you responsible for individually. So you might say this project was a success, it was a team effort. My responsibility in that project was
Yeah.
planning or resourcing this or whatever the case, securing funding or, creating the after action reports or whatever your part of it was. So you need to be able to use examples, highlight how you applied the skills that you identified, right? At the beginning, when you're doing your reflection, your roles, responsibilities, skills, how do you highlight those in real world scenarios? And the best way to learn that is looking at job descriptions.
Yeah.
You have a job that you're interested in. What jargon are they using? What language are they using? You have to speak civilian language. And quantifying your experience is super important, right? If you were responsible for a program that was a $12 million program, that's a great, that's a great quantifiable thing that shows corporate America what
Yeah.
you were responsible for. Because a lot of people aren't responsible for a $12 billion program or a $12 million program, or $1.2 million program. So don't overdo it with quantifiable metrics, but put those in there. They want to know if you were responsible for teams or people, how many, money, budgets, how much. They want to see numbers. Another good thing the military does is it does show percentage improvement or, the result of your actions. I improved efficiency by 50%. I reduced, cost by 50%. Those are really good results
Yeah.
that companies want to see. So those are good things to point out. So, that being able to speak the language and put these experiences and skills and whatnot into civilian language is super important.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, and I know that you deal with this a lot too, but when I mentor veterans, people will provide me their performance reports. And one thing that I'll never forget her name, Tech Sergeant Janet Bassey, she was my first supervisor ever in the Air Force. But now, 25 years later, I mean, this one thing that she taught me has helped me every single year since 2000. And it is to track what I do on a daily basis, not just relying on my annual performance report to provide me this information that I'm going to utilize for my civilian resume or my civilian interviews. So from your task tracker or whatever you use, I have a OneNote that I keep track of. And like even last year, I have 365 entries, every single day that I worked. It's a little less than that. I didn't work on the weekends, but you know what I mean, right? I have an entry for every day that I work, just little things that I did, yesterday, answer 6 phone calls, our stand-up meeting, website meeting, like, because, and who did I work with? What did I do? What was the result? Because that information is going to help you truly identify your transferable skill set and then create the content for your resume and your interview stories. So be mindful that these performance reports, these should not be the end all be all. You need to have some sort of tracker. I don't care what it is, a Word document, a OneNote, or an Excel document that you have for your entire career, separated by years. And that way you have all of this information and be specific. And a formula that I like to use is seriously like, what did I do? How did I do it? Who did I work with? And what was the result? And that information will provide you information to populate your resume and your interview.
100%. And I might show my age here a little bit, but when I used to deliver resumes to people, I would say, This is a living document. Keep it in a file folder, print it out, and every single day add to it. What did
Yep.
what new skill did you learn at work this month? Or what new task did you accomplish? Or what project did you close? Or, you have to write it down because we forget. We
Yeah.
forget all these little things. And so it can be used for the annual performance review. It can be used for creating your next resume. It could be used for looking for a job. Hey, I really loved doing this back in July. I think I'd like to have a job where I get to do more of that, right?
Yep.
So if you keep it in some form, and keep it living, then it's going to help you. And I say update your resume regularly because you never know
Yeah.
when an opportunity is going to pop up that you want to go after.
Yeah, and it's, when I was in the military, I had a battle rhythm and I still have the battle rhythm. I track every single day, all of my tasks, and like literally every single task, don't miss a day. It's just a part of what I do. And it's just ingrained in me because Tech Sergeant Janet Bassey told me, she's like, no one is going to advocate for you except you. And
Right.
so you have to provide them the information. She's like, because she asked me when I first came in, she's like, what do you want to do? I was like, I want to be chief, a brand new airman first class. And she's like, okay, well, chiefs track what they do. And so I tracked everything, what I do daily and then weekly. And then the first Monday of every month, that was a big sort of HR thing, is like the first Monday of every month, you update metrics, you do this, you do that. And so I just kind of took that, the next step and updated my resume, updated my LinkedIn, updated any important information, maybe for the company or whatever it is. And it's something that I still do daily. And I'm not looking for a job, but I agree with you. In today's job market, you never know what can happen to your secure job. And
Mhm.
you don't want to have to update a resume before you submit it. Like you
Right.
want that resume right now to be ready to go. Maybe a
Yep.
10-minute once over, and then you can send it, because the more time you waste trying to update something that really actually should be current, that means that someone else is coming in before you.
Yeah, or you're going to miss something. I want to also talk a little bit about using the word leadership and levels, how they're different in corporate America than they are in the military. So in the military, you're used to a rank structure that you're familiar with, and you understand at each rank what they're responsible for, generally, everything about that rank and the next rank and the next rank. In corporate America, that's very, very different.
Yeah.
Um,
And
every company.
it's not always the same company to
No,
company. Yeah.
yeah, it's totally different. So, we work with this one construction company, and when you come in, you're a project engineer, then you're a project engineer two, then a project engineer three, then a junior project manager, and then finally you're a project, whatever, and then you're a project manager, and it's a sequence. And so that is the rank, so to speak, for project management in that specific company. Go next door to the next company and they have no structure, right? I mean, if you're a good BSer, you're getting promoted. Some companies don't follow what some might consider to be a normal or an ethical way to advance.
Yeah.
But typically, most companies have some type of structure how to advance. And so when you use the word leader, many companies consider leadership to be the C-suite. So the chief
Yeah.
executive officer, the chief operating officer, the chief whatever officer.
Yeah.
So when you start, everybody talks about people coming out of the military have leadership skills, and we could drill it down to, somebody has to get someone to do something that's against their nature to live. And you have to be a leader to get somebody to do that, right? It is the truth. The
Yeah.
military fosters leadership, teaches leadership. Corporate America does not teach leadership. You learn it along the way. And some people are natural leaders and other people aren't. But when you start talking about yourself as a leader and you're applying for a project management job, doesn't mean part of management is leadership. But
Yeah.
but if you term yourself a leader, then they think you're going for, you think of yourself as a C-level executive, and you're applying for a project management job, and they're like, I don't know that this person's going to be satisfied with project management because they're not leading the company. So be careful about using that term, leadership, as terming yourself at the top of your resume as a leader, right? Because you could shoot yourself in the foot as far as getting into, you can overextend or not. But people might think that you're misguided on how you see yourself in the corporate world. So that's one that I've seen kind of a lot. And
Yeah.
and then on the other hand, I was doing a resume for somebody who was coming out of, I think she was coming out of the Air Force. She was an officer, fairly high ranking, and I started talking to her about her resume. It was time to work on her resume, and I asked her what was she doing, what jobs was she going for, and she was telling me about this job where she was going to work for a health system in an area of the state I live in that I'm familiar with, and she was going to be kind of a runner between the different locations of this health system, just doing something. It was kind of administrative, like not an administrative leader, but more like,
Yeah.
and I said, why are you doing that? And she said, because somebody who, some officer told me that I'm going to have to start at rock bottom in corporate America. And I'm like, you're retiring after 20 some odd years as whatever. And you think you need to start at a, admin
Like
role in
entry
a
level?
company?
No,
I
yeah.
said, I said, no, 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 let's get started. So we got to work on her resume, and Booz Allen Hamilton created a job for her well over six figures because that was her level of knowledge, skills, and ability to contribute to their business in that region. And they created a job for her because they didn't want to lose her. And that's a prime example. You can undercut yourself as well as overcut yourself. So understand, and Misty preaches this all the time. She has a lot of this on our free resources. Reflect on what are your non-negotiables? What do you want to do? How hard do you want to work? Because a C-level job, as Misty says, requires C-level time and effort.
Yeah.
So
100%.
yeah, like what do you have to earn to live the life you want to live? And and how much do you want to work at this stage in your life? What's important to you? And you have to incorporate all of that into figuring out your transferable skills, how you want to talk to about yourself, how to look for the jobs that have, the need for people with your skills, and find yourself in a role that's at the right level, doing the right thing for your life and what your goals are. It all is combined. So we're talking about how to identify your transferable skills. But in doing that, you have to also take into consideration everything you want moving forward.
Yeah, and people gave me a lot of pushback when, my husband and I agreed that I would not apply for HR manager or HR director jobs, although people were saying that my rank and my roles and responsibility were equivalent. And I believe that even you told me that. And I just kind of made a decision like, hey, I'm probably going to have a pretty difficult time adjusting outside of the military mentally. Let me go ahead and apply to this human resources business partner, sort of like a mid-level position. And let me just kind of learn the ropes of the business and just see if this is actually what I desire to do and what I want to do. And I was blessed that the hiring manager was also former military. So I am not blind to know that I was given a chance because he understands the value of my skills from the military. But then the rest is history. I was there for 4 years and I was promoted 3 times. But I don't say that to brag. I say that first year that I went in and I was just I don't believe in starting. I don't believe that we start at rock bottom. I do believe that you're starting at the beginning of the civilian sector, and that will look different for different people depending on what company. I was at a Fortune 500 company, 1,500 people. To me, I was in the right position at the right level because the first 90
That was
days,
a lot. Yeah.
oh my gosh, you know what I mean? Like, oh, what did I get myself into? And I was so happy that I was not managing human resources for that company. But that first year, is 100% the reason why I'm where I'm at today, because I established, okay, I know I have this skill set, but I filled in the gaps, learned the ins and outs of HR, not only HR in the civilian sector, but HR in a manufacturing company when you're dealing with 50% of the population that are not US citizens or residents, and they have visas and, lots of different things. And then 4 years later, I left the civilian sector, with a lot of hope that veterans just like me, as long as we take some time and identify first before we look at anything else, what kind of lifestyle do I want? What are the things that I want to do? When you think about, oh, I'm going to retire, I'm going to separate, what do you want to do? Like, take that stuff into consideration. And just like what Cathy said, 6-figure salaries require 6-figure work. I worked harder in 4 years, longer, and I'm telling you, like, it was the best experience really in my professional career, but I worked even harder than I did in Iraq and Afghanistan, longer. It's just a different environment, but I was well compensated, 6 figures, but I did 6-figure work. So those are things that, you need to consider before you start identifying your skill sets and doing your resume and your interview.
And Misty said something that's really important here too, is she got promoted 4 times. And that's what's going to happen to you. In our experience, helping all the people we've helped, I mean, we've had approximately 1,000 people go through our SkillBridge program already. We work with, 60 some odd companies at any given time who are hosting our SkillBridge interns for on-the-job training. And we have this conversation often with people who are like, oh, they're offering me the job, but it's, 5,000 or 10,000 less. And it's not the title I wanted, 5,000 or 10,000 less than what I wanted. And what we have seen is for those people who it is a great fit, it is the perfect job, they love the company, they take the job, and they're getting promoted much quicker than somebody off the street. Because the well-rounded experience that you get out of the military makes you a more well-rounded employee. You're able to have tough conversations with people in higher leadership positions. You're able to talk to anyone at any level and help them or guide them or ask them a question. There are obviously some things that take adjustment. I should be able to do this on my own. They told me to do this. I shouldn't have to ask for help. Ask for help. Trust me. But so there's
because everybody else is asking for help, just
right.
so you know.
Exactly. And but our experience is that people advance much quicker than the average person does. So if you take a step back, to Misty's point, it gave her a breather. It gave her her own grace to learn the company, learn corporate America, learn the job, and make sure that she was equipped and had everything she needed to move on to that next level. And they're begging her to move on to that next level before she even probably expected it. So, that's what's going to happen to you if you play your cards right. So don't worry about, quote, undercutting yourself, starting a little bit less salary, as long as it's within that comfort zone that you can live to the way that you need to live. But it's like buying a house. $5,000 in salary is not going to significantly change your paycheck that much. So
and you talk about this all the time. The more money you make, the higher the tax bracket. I feel like I, make more money now, you know what I mean? Like the tax bracket matters. So, and it's also important to look at all those benefits. Like I might not have been making, when I first started, the salary that I was making as a senior master sergeant, but the 401k match and, all the amenities and all this stuff, like 100% made up for it. So that's why in the civilian sector, we call it compensation and benefits. It's the full plan. You know what I mean? Benefits are intangible and tangible. Like, there's just so much that goes with it. And honestly, when, and I know that you can speak to this a little bit, but when we separate or retire from the military, we're still militarized. We're still very used to being in the military because it is different, right? You're signing a contract, you have dotted line commitments, you have 2 sets of laws that you have to adhere to, and you're literally agreeing that every time you put your uniform on, that you could die in order to protect freedom and liberty for the United States. So yes, it's a different commitment. So give yourself some time to get used to being a civilian that is subjected to one set of laws where it's not that serious in most organizations, and you get to learn what you actually like to do,
Mhm.
and where you like to work. A common question is, what kind of environment do you thrive in? And I always answered like super fast pace and high ops tempo. BS. No, I don't. I don't like that at all anymore. I thought I liked it because I had to in the military, right? But give yourself some time. So if you go right in a super high stress or high level position, you may not have the time to actually adjust to your new way of life.
Right. And a lot of times I hear people they come to me after they've been in their SkillBridge internship for a couple of weeks and they say, wow, these people don't work very fast and it's really hard for me. Okay, enjoy that, take a breather, and then at some point you will be able to help them become more efficient, maybe. Maybe just the group you're with isn't as efficient as they should be, or maybe that's just the pace of that company and the work they do. Until you really understand, maybe they're waiting on things from other divisions or partner companies or subcontractors or whatever. But the pace might be very different and it's hard to get used to. It's kind of like going from the military into a fully remote job. Some people thrive in that, other people, it takes adjustment. I didn't come out of the military, but when I first started, that company I worked for, we went remote. It took me a long time to get out of that mindset of, being at my desk at a certain time and staying at a certain time and don't run to the bank in the middle of the day and all that. Now it's like I work with a company, thank goodness, that, doesn't care when I go to the bank or if I run an errand. My job's done. They don't care. That's all they care about. But some companies are different than others.
Yeah.
And you won't know that for real until you get there.
Yeah.
So.
And honestly, the last piece of this is like, obviously we want to task track so we know what we've done, so we can identify our transferable skill sets, and we can show and tell via the resume, the interview, even LinkedIn, right? All of that is important. But once you do land a role, keep notes. Like, take notes of things you like, things you don't like. I have a notebook and I actually still look at it all the time, but it has like all the acronyms from that company. And I would take all these notes in meetings, and I didn't want to ask questions in the meeting because I didn't want to keep it longer. And I would go back to my team and be like, help me. What does this mean? What does this mean? Or what do we do? And give yourself some grace in order to kind of learn who you are outside of uniform, because you think you want to be XYZ, but once you have more freedom, more choice, you're not contracted, now you have an opportunity to rediscover yourself. Most of us are separating at a young age because we join at a young age, or we're retiring in our 40s and 50s. We still have years of work most of the time ahead of us, right? Because one, we want to work, and two, we can work. So just cut yourself some slack when it comes to trying to figure it all out. 63% of people in their first civilian job will leave within the first year. It's either 43% or 63%. It's a pretty high number. Keep that in mind. It's okay. Most people are not leaving because they can't cut it. They're leaving because they're discovering who they are outside of uniform. This is what college students do. And military members, although our experience is not similar to college students, we are entering a new job market that we're not used to, and we have to become familiar with. We have to find our place. So, any last words, Cathy?
Well, there are programs like SkillBridge to try to help that. And a lot of the people leave because it's underemployment when they come out, because they take the first thing because they have to have a paycheck and so they end up taking a job that isn't right for them or doesn't pay nearly enough or whatever, just because they have to have a job. So utilize programs like SkillBridge. Start networking now. Gain an understanding. Do that self-reflection. Figure out, what makes you happy, what makes you tick, what you think makes you happy, and what makes you tick. And really, understanding all of that is going to help you immensely. Maybe stay at your job longer, but gone are the days that people in the military, people stay for a really long time. My dad, who's 85, almost 86, worked for one company his whole career. But that is a thing of the past. So gone are the days where if you leave a job after a year or 2 years, that people question, why did you leave this company? And they're suspect, right? There must have been a problem. That's not the case anymore. So, give yourself the grace to say, hey, this might not be my end goal, but I'm going to give it a whirl and see how it, I'm going to learn about myself. And I'm going to learn about what I like and dislike, what I like to do, what this company culture is, and does it fit with me or not? And it's okay if it doesn't, then you move on to another opportunity.
Yeah. And one thing I always tell people, and it's something that, I will kind of follow my sword for, but you can do two things in a job. And ideally you want to be able to do both, but you can learn and or you can earn. And so if you're in a job where you're just learning or not earning, learn it up. Learn it up, fill that skill bridge. I mean, bridge that gap of the skills, right? Connect with people, build your network, and then hopefully you can get into a job where you're learning and you're earning, right? If you're just in a job to earn, and I just talked to a pilot, he said, he was flying for 20 years in the military and now, he's at a company and he's sitting at a desk and he's like, yeah, I earn a lot of money, but I'm not, I don't feel fulfilled in my purpose and my passion. And I said, awesome, but you have young kids. So you get to go into work at 8:30, you get to leave at 3:30, and you get to go be with your kids. Your job funds your passion. Your job funds your purpose. And when I say fund, I'm not just talking about money. It affords you the time. And so those jobs can help you learn, can help you earn. And ideally you want to be able to do both, but recognize where you're at and then take advantage and optimize sort of this opportunity that you have. Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better.
Yeah, Cathy, great conversation. And so
oh, wait, can I add one more thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
There are translators, military to civilian terminology translators online. There's ChatGPT, what would you call this in the civilian sector? They're there to help you. One of the skills, the translation kind of things that you have to start paying attention to is job titles. You don't want to call yourself whatever your military title was most of the time. You want to find the civilian equivalent of that. So those translators can be helpful. And remember, ChatGPT is great, but it is just a Google search. Don't let ChatGPT write a resume for you because you have to ensure that what's in your resume you actually did. So understand that those tools are there to help you. And that's all. They're there to help you, right? All the original, everything has to come from you, but find those resources. Google ChatGPT, find the translations for all of these things, your job titles to all of the other things that we talked about, and that'll help you a lot. I just wanted to add that in.
No, it's good. Yeah. And so at Vets to PM, we've been around for 10 years. And so we know what we're doing. We've helped 16,000 plus people. And our goal is to help more in 2025. And we do that really with a simple formula. We help you identify your transferable skill set. We help you validate it with a professional certification such as PMP, APHR, SEC Plus, ACP, and those certifications really speak in the civilian sector. It helps other people understand what transferable skill set you have. And then we also help you show and tell via your resume, your interview, and LinkedIn. We connect you with companies that want veteran talent, and we do that via our Purple-X database. And that's just where you sort of enter this database of talent of veterans. And now our industry partners can find you. And then we also connect you with DoD SkillBridge opportunities. We are a SkillBridge provider. We work with 70 plus companies, and we have a job board that is just chock filled with, direct hire positions that want veteran talent. So Vets PM can be your one-stop shop when it comes to your military transition or career transition, regardless of where you're at. And regardless of your affiliation with the military, yes, we specialize in helping veterans achieve meaningful and lucrative post-service careers, but we also help professionals and whoever needs assistance. So we have lots of free resources, lots of paid resources, and this podcast alone is one of those resources. Cathy, thank you so much for everything that you provided on the podcast. And you can find Cathy on her LinkedIn. She has a great LinkedIn profile. She posts lots of DoD SkillBridge opportunities and just great blogs and articles that'll just help you think a little past your experience and just help you, achieve a meaningful and lucrative post-service career. So thanks again, Cathy.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.